Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Questioning a better way, one gracefully disruptive conversation at a time.
Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila. I'm so excited to be here with you today. This is part 2. If you listened to our podcast from last week with the Sunny Choi, we are going to have another conversation with her specifically about monetizing your skill set, your passion, your likeness, all the things that are big. We've got the NIL in colleges right now, name, image, and likeness, how you can make money as a student athlete. That certainly wasn't there when I was there. Not that I was going to be making a bunch of money as a female women's cross player, but now it's different. The game is different. So I think this conversation and being an entrepreneur early is extremely valuable. So before we jump in, let's give some love to our sponsors. Lux Neuro, offering neurofeedback and counseling where your heart and mind align. For more information about what neurofeedback can do for you, lean into luxneuro.com. Neurofeedback can effectively treat everything from insomnia, anxiety, depression, trauma, ADHD, and much more. Optimize your brain. Declan James watches. They are veteran-owned, made in Denver, Colorado, and 10% of all the sales go back to the Navy SEAL Foundation, former Navy SEAL creator. So go check them out. Shout out to Brian Doherty. Sunny, let's jump right back in. So you're at the Olympics. You're coming home. You know, the height is the fire strikes, and I think for many of our Olympians, outside of the super mainstream athletes, you have to hustle to make this a business, and it's really hard. Social media and websites and Facebook and all this has helped, and TikTok. But I'm really curious, coming from this extremely traditional corporate background, what was some of did you have like a business plan or a strategy? Like, here's what I'm going to do, and here's how I'm going to make money.
My strategy was actually save up a decent amount of money when I start this journey, knowing that this was going to be so challenging and it was going to take some time for contracts to come through. Yeah. And then fingers crossed, doing the best I can to kind of make a brand for myself and get kind of the word out there so that some people would, bite and some money would come through. And I got lucky in that a lot of things aligned for me in my Olympic journey. One, being a woman in sport, in a new Olympic sport at that. And so being those two, having the corporate background and kind of an untraditional pathway to the Olympics. And then having qualified early. So, everyone kind of had time to actually get in and get their foot in the door and work through those contracts and do media and all of that. I think a lot of things worked out for me that made my journey a little bit easier and gave me more visibility than some of the other athletes out there. But yeah, there's definitely a lot that went into it. And I knew from the beginning that one of the most important things was kind of building, and the word brand is the most appropriate, but it makes me cringe a little because I'm coming from corporate and I think I wanted to just throw it all out the window.
I hear you.
Can't, because brands, companies need something to buy into. And so it's who are you? What do you stand for? And then how do you get that message out? And so I did have to kind of think about what that looked like and how I was going to do it. And so, it was a lot of experimenting. And I do feel like in this day and age, the one good thing is you get to experiment a lot, especially on social, and kind of figure out what that looks like and what works best for you. And then you can kind of iterate, and it's not like it's millions of dollars to create an ad campaign. It's just a social media post. You can maybe do it in 5 seconds, or maybe it takes a couple days, whatever that looks like for you or whatever makes most sense. But yeah, it was a lot of just trial and error to figure that out, and also kind of figure out me and what I wanted to stand for.
It's so real. And I got to say, yes, I think you can say luck, but that's when preparation meets opportunity. Old school saying. And none of this would have happened. This is where you have to take the credit if you didn't take the leap. So sure, you lucked out, but on the flip side, all the media outlets, all the young women that look like you, all the women that played sport, all that, we all lucked out because you took this leap and now you get to lead this conversation in this emerging space. So it always works both ways. And again, none of this would have happened had you not taken that massive risk that most people can't do, to bet on yourself and to lean in. And I totally hear you. I work with a lot of business coaching and influencers. My company started doing that early because I was doing business before Instagram took off, to state my age. But then all my good humans, they're like, we don't want to be influencers. We hate that word. And I'm like, well, time out. I hear you. And I'm with you. It's, if you flip the perspective of just being an inspire and a leader, if you're a brand, you have this opportunity really to impact and be the voice. You already have the skill set. You're doing big things, all this stuff. I mean, you're the person we want on the mic. Like, that's the point of it. So I always try and shift the perspective, just like stuff we talked about in the first podcast of, we're not really changing anything. We're just changing the perspective of it and then learning how to embrace it. I'm not saying that's easy, but it's a necessary tool. And of all the influencers or, brands that we have out there that humans are building, this is one you want to lean into. Like, you're a good human, do good things the right way. And at this point, you've had to have been around a few where you're like, okay, that's not going to be me.
Yeah. Oh no, it was definitely a process of figuring that out. I remember kind of early on, well, I think when I originally started this journey, I don't know if I had a photo of myself on my Instagram. I think it was only pictures of food. There may have been a few, but it was really just photos of food. And just looking at my Instagram, it's like, who is Sunny? Well, she's not an arepa. She's not this like beautiful gourmet dish at like this dessert spot. Like, who is she? And so, yeah, it took a lot of like, all right, well, what kind of content speaks to me? What makes me, truthfully, it's what makes me not cringe.
Yeah, that's okay.
Because there's a lot of content out there that I don't vibe with, it just doesn't feel right for me. I do sometimes do some of the trends because some of them I find them either hilarious or I'm like, oh, I could put a twist on it, and then it becomes like my personality.
Yeah.
But a lot of the stuff that I was seeing out there, I didn't like it. Or it's fun to consume, but I didn't want to produce content like that. And so it took some time to kind of figure out, a lot of scrolling through Instagram, but not like the fun scrolling, like the I'm searching for something and I can't find it scrolling.
Yeah.
But a lot of that to kind of figure out what types of things that I wanted to post. And like you were saying, it wasn't so much about doing this kind of the trendy stuff and being the content creator in the most typical sense. What I realized is people were really grateful for like me kind of showing what my process looked like and like the experiences that I was having and like taking them on this journey with me. And so, that looks very different from these like one-off funny videos or like these little trendy like outfit things, which I mean, sure, those are fun to kind of like put in when it makes sense. But it was really about like kind of showing the different things that I was doing, what my life looks like, what my training looks like what is it that I'm doing to prepare for the Olympics, because that's kind of where I would get the comments of like, oh, this is really cool. Like, I love that you're taking us along this journey with you. And that's kind of where I found my niche, at least, leading up to the games. I'm actually trying to now figure out, I'm going to still do some of that because people still don't know what it looks like to be a full-time breaker. Totally. But also kind of figuring out what other types of content I want to create. But yeah, it was definitely a process. And then not only the type of content, but like what messaging. Talking about mental health was really big for me, so that's one that's in there. One thing that's not really on my Instagram much right now that like I would like to be, or kind of in my persona that's out there. It's in my media persona, but not my social media persona, is like working with kids and teaching and stuff like that, which is something I really enjoy. So like that's in one facet of my persona that like some people will see, but then there's a whole nother world that like knows nothing about that. So, kind of being conscientious of like the types of messaging I was putting in the different channels, and seeing like where I could make sure that was lining up so that the holistic view of me is like, oh, I get the type of person that Sunny is.
Let's go. Turmeric and tequila. Seemingly opposing things can harmoniously coexist. And that space between is the graceful disruption. And that's what it is. I have to ask, would you consider yourself spiritual, religious? Like what's your energy and faith look like?
I am religious. I grew up in church, and I don't go to church now, but I still believe. But yeah, it's not like a huge part of my life. However, it does definitely kind of guide the way that I move through life. And, the lessons that I learned as a kid definitely have kind of shaped the person that I am today.
For sure. Well, the reason I ask is because it's very ironic that you went from no pictures of you on your Instagram to quite literally the world's biggest stage. And let's be clear, this was your choice. Like, this is, I think, God, universe, Madonna. I'm a big Madonna fan. I always say the universe will show up, or God, or whatever it is, will show up and check you in the most aggressive way. And it's still through us, through our choice. So you literally did like this 180 and chose like the most aggressive path to like self growth and like medals and everything aside. This had to be an extraordinary journey of self discovery, of going a 180. And that's not easy as we get older. When you're little, you get down, you get up, you wipe off your knee if it gets scraped, whatever. 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever. We start to get stuck in our ways and it's harder to maneuver.
Yeah.
Can you see that now that it's, the event has passed and everything else? Sounds like you're pretty self-aware that was the process.
Yeah. I mean, I think this Olympic journey was like a ton of personal and mental growth compacted in a very short timeline so that I could kind of show up at the games as like the best version of me. But that version of me was so different from the person who started the journey.
Sure.
And everything that happened in between had it happened in any other period of my life, it would have looked very, very different.
Yeah.
And I think because I'm older, it was in some ways, yes, while you're younger, you get up, you scrape, you get back, and it's like nothing happened and it's like it's quick. The good thing about being a little older is you care less. And so you fall down, you get up, maybe you don't heal as fast, but you just don't care. And you keep going. And so I think that's what made it a little bit easier, was caring less about the mistakes, caring less about what I look like, being able to kind of shed that perfectionist self and allow for some mistakes and things like that. And so, yeah, I think that's the one beauty of getting a little bit older. And that's what made some of the process a little bit easier, I think, because I mean, without this Olympic journey, this growth wouldn't have happened. I probably would look more similar to the Sunny in 2021, 2022 than I do today, had I not, made that leap and gone this pathway. But yeah, and I mean, honestly, like social media is part of why I had to kind of figure some of this stuff out, like being out there and talking about it and figuring out what I stand for and what's important to me. I had to do the personal work first before I could put it out there. So while I really am not a huge fan of social media, I will say it has helped along the way in some ways.
There's gold to every angle of everything. You just have to mine for it sometimes more than others. And we're an extraordinary universe and timing of things, because you can build a brand being, a 30-plus-year-old breaker, a 40-plus-year-old podcaster. Like, there's no limit to dreams, as cliche as that sounds. The upside of social media is it diversifies the power and control in this media and exposure space. And that's extraordinary. The key piece, like what you said, is we have to do the authentic work. We have to show up as ourselves. A lot of influencers, companies, brands, even big ones, are not doing that. They're still paying for things and, making it shape and look a certain way, where that's not true. And this day and age, our young humans are conscious consumers. They get it. They've grown up with this stuff. So if you're a high, Fortune 500 plus and you're paying for these campaigns that don't look real, the TikToker that's 12 that's saying the truth is going to do better. So yeah, it's mining for the gold. Has that helped you navigate your relationships with brands and everything else, because you lived that side of it? And, even if I know we all need to pay bills and whatnot, has that helped you identify who you want to work with and how?
Yeah, I mean, I knew from the beginning that I wanted to stay authentic to me and that I didn't want to compromise for a partnership. I had a list of partners that I wanted to work with initially, and I got some of them, which is amazing. And it's funny because when it came to like outside the core, like the bigger brands, it's all kind of in this like health world. And so I got a lot of offers from people that don't fall in that world. And I said no to much more money than I actually said yes to. My boyfriend makes fun of me all the time still to this day. He's like, we would be so rich if you had just said yes to everything. But I couldn't do it. And, you know, while some of it is because it just didn't feel right, the other part of it's like, I truly believe that it's important to be authentic. And I really wanted this journey to be about me and finding myself and really putting myself forward. And to do that, I also needed to align myself with brands that aligned with my values, with my messaging. Otherwise, that like dissonance, I think, makes it kind of challenging to move forward. I actually even worked with a brand for a little bit and then cut ties with them like almost halfway through. I'd already done some work and then I was like, you know what? This isn't working. It's pulling me behind. It's a lot of money, but we can't do this. Even allowing myself to say no and not follow through with something 100%, as I always have, like that was new. But that would like, it felt right. It was what I needed to do. And so, yeah, this journey was just, I've completely forgotten the question, but the journey was definitely kind of really interesting. And the partnerships ended up all working out, and they, you know, the ones that I have are really, really great and have helped move me forward rather than backward. But again, it was being very, very mindful of who I was working with. And then, yeah, I mean, the corporate also helped here because I think, you know, you get that sense, even for the first couple emails, you just like, something is off, or like the way they're talking is like very, very financially driven versus like talking about partnership and collaboration. It's just like those little cues I was always looking for. And so sometimes like the first email would be like, oh, red flag, like this is a no-go, just based off the way that the email was stated, or like kind of the emphasis on one element versus another. So it was definitely helpful in that sense. But yeah, I think it was more about feeling than it was about that kind of corporate business analytical side.
Oh, everyone, if you're listening, write that down. This human hails from high-end, very competitive corporate space and basically just said heart over head. And I cannot agree with you more. And that was not the conversation years ago. But right now, and I've worked with influencers before, again, Instagram, social media was a thing. So 20 plus years of experience, take any piece of this with a grain of salt. The quality over quantity all day long. Again, our consumers, our young people see through it, and you don't need a million partners. You just need a few good ones that you can really bleed the brand and build your humans. And what influencers and companies don't always take into consideration is this is days and hours out of your life. You are co-branding, you're co-mingling your time. You want to work with people that are actually like-minded with you and have similar soul space. Like you want, that's why I asked, like, you know, are you religious? Are you spiritual? Whatever it is, you have to have something that keeps you guided, you know, moving forward, but also keeps your feet on the ground. So whatever that, I don't like to say anchor is, it has to be in it. And when people get wrapped up in the money and just going that direction, it really does crap on your brand, we'll say. And it diminishes value in yourself, and you're the product. So you have to like really hold that tight and hold it, you know, secure. And so good for you for having those boundaries. And this is the Wild West. Like there's no rules to any of this. I don't care what influencer agency you're coming from. Like it's truly like no one knows what they're doing. The fact that the way things are consumed are changing so fast. Products are changing, companies are changing fast. Like it's moving. So you just have to be ready to audible at all times. How did you facilitate like your team, like agent, PR, like what was, because that's a whole skill set in itself as well.
Well, I actually ended up having quite an untraditional team. And like that might switch up actually soon-ish, but leading up to the games, I had somebody who I was working with, actually kind of more of a, you know, like a life coach kind of setting, who moved into an agent role, but not a traditional agent role, because he was a little bit more hands-off, and it was more kind of advising and then contractual stuff. So like the financial stuff and doing the negotiations. That's a big one for me, is I didn't want to ever talk about money. I think it just gets a little bit challenging when an athlete is speaking to the company directly, because when an athlete feels undervalued, you know, you're just never going to feel good no matter kind of where you land. Whereas if you have a middle person there to kind of soften those blows, it's really helpful. And so I think the agent role was, I knew it was key and I knew I needed that. But I had talked to other agents and I wasn't super happy about it, because so many agents out there just want to get you work. And they're not going to get you the best deal. They're not going to get you the most money, but they're going to make you busy. And I didn't want to be busy. I had spent so much time, so much of my life being busy that I was like, I just want to make sure I have meaningful partnerships. And I want to be able to say no. And I want to be able to ask for more money if I need it. Or, like I wanted to be empowered. And so by having this relationship with my agent, which is kind of a little bit more non-traditional, it really worked out for me because I was able to take the reins and really make a lot of the decisions myself. Like I almost passed up on a huge deal because they didn't meet my financial ask. And I think, most of the agents probably would have flipped out. And, mine was like, do it if it feels right, and it just feels really good to have that kind of support. I also hired an assistant because media was getting really, really overwhelming for me in the lead up to the games. And, to the point where I was just dreading opening my email and I was just not able to schedule things. And then I remember I had a total breakdown because I think somebody moved a meeting by like 15 minutes and then everything on my schedule for that day was off. And I literally just started crying. And I was like, okay, I need an assistant. So actually, ironically, one of my direct reports, one of the managers at Estée Lauder, she had kind of quit around the time when I quit. And I asked, knowing that she was like way overqualified, but amazing at her job, I was like, would you want to do this as a side gig? I don't know what I'm doing. You don't know what you're doing because this is new, but we'll figure it out together. So she was my assistant and she still is my assistant right now. And that's just been amazing because I knew from the start I could trust her. She has great email skills, amazing, just personality on through the computer. You kind of just sense it. She's super kind. And so I had her kind of handle that. And so when it came to at least the financials, those are the two people I really leaned in on. While Kristen didn't do any of the agent kind of stuff, she would field everything for me and then either pass it to the agent, ask me if I wanted to do it, or kind of just handle it off onto the side, off to the side. And so that's how I was set up. And so by doing it that way, though, I had a lot of control, which was really nice. Yeah. Being a control freak, but also knowing what I wanted and making sure I wanted to keep everything within brand and feeling right. I needed to be the one making the decisions. And so I think for me, that was actually the right move.
Hell yeah, that's amazing. And and letting go of pieces, because it's not just your heart space, you're literally the product. And I know that's cringy in itself. That's the truth, because when the buck stops at you got to go out perform your whatever. And finding the right people, I always give this advice: find the right people. Don't always say yes to the big and big names. The number one thing is trust. Can you trust these people? And do they speak the way you speak? They feel the way you feel? And these are intangibles that are really hard to explain. But you nailed all of this, round one. This space is building out, and you already knew how to navigate that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I know you're saying it's not always luck, but I did feel luck that the person who I was already working with, who was advising me in general, was I would be open to moving into this kind of contractual relationship, this relationship with you where I'm working through contracts and financial. And then the person who I trusted and knew she was just amazing in her job was just free, and was willing to try something brand new with me. So we all kind of honestly muddled through it together. This was new for all three of us. But that's also what made it really great, is that we got to kind of mold it to make it work for us. And, in the lead up to the games, I never had to worry about an email or an opportunity slipping through, or I never had to worry about someone trying to push me into a decision that I wasn't comfortable with, or, especially in those stressful moments, I didn't want any more stress. And I knew the two of them would not add. If anything, I constantly was feeling grateful because they were just making me feel really just supported, and they were so helpful along the way. So, just grateful. I would say lucky, awesome. But let's just use the word grateful.
Well, the vibe attracts the tribe. So if you've been this entire path leading up to this a good human, you have good humans in your life. So at some point, the right thing's going to come through. God, universe, Madonna will provide what it is you need. I really believe that if you believe and you're open and you're like, here's what I need, I really believe the right thing comes in. I'm not that casual with, you know, I'd sit there and hope it comes in because I do stress out and I like to control like you and like we got to do more, we got to read more, we got to train harder, we got to do like speaking more things. And sometimes it's just like you got to have a little faith that shit's going to show up and then somehow it does. So I think that's incredible advice for anyone that's listening that's really looking to take the leap and then monetize the dream. And that's it's a really hard thing and it's a hard thing to digest. And it can be good. Social media can be good. The process can be good. Lawyers in some capacity can be good. You just have to find the right path for you and the right people. Is there any other advice you have for anyone looking to like take the leap and then, you know, take this creative path, you know, making a living off your dream?
I'm kind of piggybacking off of what we just talked about. I would say don't be scared to do something a little bit untraditional. Like initially I was really hesitant about building my own team the way that I did because so many other athletes just have an agent or they have a manager and they have this team. And it's a very traditional kind of sport team that people know in this world. And I think, you know, while I'm talking about the world of sport, like this is applicable elsewhere. Where the setup is, you know, you have an agent and or manager or both, and they're kind of working on everything and then kind of just hand you some things, you make some decisions, and you go do the thing, right? I, for some reason, just didn't feel right for me. And so I went forward and tried to find a different way. And by doing so, I think I really was able to enjoy this journey a lot more and was able to get the deals that I really wanted and have them be meaningful to me and have really great relationships with my partners. And so, you know, I think it's about being open-minded to possibility and not necessarily saying I need to do things the way that other people have done them, because there might be another way. So, you know, and sometimes maybe there's not. I'm not always going to say there is, but like in my instance, in this case, there was. So there might be. So kind of keep an open mind, look at the options. If it doesn't feel right, like keep looking because something might come your way.
There you go. And before my last question, is there any like the partners or something you've learned activation wise, marketing wise, that you've done creatively that stands out that you really liked? Does that make sense?
I mean, in like different ways, there's many things that I could probably think of.
Okay.
Like there's like a favorite campaign that I was a part of, which is Nike, the Future campaign. I don't know how many people have seen it, but it was like a graffiti artist and we were dancing to like the sounds of spray paint. And it's just like this really beautiful artistic piece. And I knew from the pitch that it was going to be really cool. Showed up on set. The team was awesome, working with just an amazing group of people. I just felt very valued, very seen. And then the actual piece was like just really, really cool. So like that was one that I'm going to take away from this journey of like one of my activations with a partner that was just like really, really, really cool and memorable. One of the other things actually was a big takeaway was being able to say no even to my partners. That was really challenging for me because in my head it's like, okay, I have to keep this relationship really good, so I need to say yes to everything. Realizing that by sometimes saying no to things that really, you know, didn't feel right or didn't make sense, I'm able to show up more fully for the ones that I do say yes to. And so I think that was really helpful, and a learning that I made along the way to kind of having even better relationships. Like you think the relationship is going to be great if you're just like a yes person, but maybe not. I think by saying no on occasion, the yeses just mean more because I'm able to really show up and make that relationship count.
100%. You got to know your value.
So
Yeah. I think that's, and thank you for sharing that because I think that's something that's really overlooked if you're being an athlete or an influencer or an inspirer, or, you know, leading speaker, whatever. You don't realize all the cool people you're going to meet around that situation, the photographers, the fellow creatives, an artist, like that's all this stuff. These are really unique human beings kind of pursuing the passion like you. So I think that falls short, you know, in the influencer, leader, athlete conversation of that, all the stuff that comes with it. I think there's a lot of horror stories around it because there is, but if you're mindful and you're choosing the right things, you also get to be around really extraordinary, like-minded humans. And again, get paid, do the campaign, whatever. But those days of your life are more fun. Like you're taking away soul pieces of it that are really, really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Last question. I have 100 more, but we'll let you be free. What is success to you?
That definition has changed so much for me over the years, but I think success to me is just being able to enjoy the moments and allowing myself to be happy. This is a hard one. I feel like I might cry. But for so long, it was about doing the right thing and thinking that by doing what society is telling me is going to make me successful, that I'm going to be happy. I was never happy living that life. And I realized that I needed to make choices and prioritize me and know that I deserve happiness, allow myself to be happy in order to be happy. And I think when I made that realization where I don't want to say it's that happiness is a choice, but it's like a pathway that you get to decide, that you get to pick, that will lead you to more happiness. You know, I don't wake up happy every single day. But in general, I'm so much happier, so much more content, so much more present today than I ever was before. And that's all just because I chose myself. And I chose to do the things that fuel me. And I chose to put aside the nonsense and the expectation and everything else and just, you know, live my life. So yeah.
Amen. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that's nailed it. It's some of those lessons take time to understand. And I just got to make a prediction, however this lands. I think Sunny, the athlete, will be extraordinary. If you win a gold medal tomorrow, it comes back to the Olympics, what have you. I think your largest impact, perhaps success and money, if that's a dream, is going to be Sunny the human. So I hope you get on every podcast, get on every stage, do the speaking, because the athlete's a huge piece of it. I really feel like that's like the rocket ship to the actual goal of just sharing the journey and sharing the soul. I know this sounds so cliche, but I think you're so heart space driven. I hope all of our young humans have access to your voice and your journey, particularly our young women, because these are the conversations that matter, like athletes and things and the Olympic. That's amazing. And we have to find this piece of our heart that like we're actually enjoying these extraordinary things authentically. And then in turn, you get to live your purpose and it all kind of works together. So there's a pile of cliches for you, but I really appreciate you sharing the mental health
Thank
side.
you.
Yeah, because that's what
No,
it's all
I
about.
really appreciate it. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure. This is a really great conversation, and it does fuel me. It used to drain me actually, but it does fuel me now to kind of talk about these things and know that people are listening and that people really are relating to it. And so I do hope, you know, someone out there is listening and it's like, oh, maybe, you know, we talked a lot. Maybe it's just one little
Yeah.
snippet, but that one little snippet maybe will stick with you or come to you on a day that you need it, you know? So
There you go.
yeah.
That's it. That's what we say. I'm like, I would like, do you have a plan? I'm like, no, I don't do questions. Like, whatever comes out, we're in it. Like, I really do have faith in larger order that however it shows up, super imperfect. I have ums and ahs and all the things. And like, somehow the right things will come out and the right people will hear it. And that's basically the business strategy of Turmeric and Tequila. So when my guests
I love
show
it.
up vulnerable, yeah, and you share the energy and you share the truth, it makes all the difference in the world. So I really appreciate you leaning in.
Thank you. I appreciate you for taking the time. This was fun.
Absolutely. Hit us really quick with tags, websites, anything. Where can we find you? Anything you want to announce you have going on?
Well, Instagram, it's _ Sunny Choi, SUNNYCHOI. And then next year, I'm hoping to open a dance center / community center here in Queens. And so fingers crossed that goes well. I'm looking forward to it. So keep an eye out. Don't know the name yet, but at some point that'll be announced.
I love it. Oh, I'm dead serious. I don't say this all the time, but standing invite if you want to come back on and promote it on the show or talk about it or anything like that, just message me. You or your team know how to get a hold. But we're always here to help facilitate our like-minded humans' causes and anything to do with life skills through sports. That's my heart space. We're your spot. So I really appreciate it. I'm going to give a little love to our sponsors. Declan James watches come through. Lux Neuro, I want to give them a shout out. Neurofeedback and Counseling. Lux Neuro wants to meet you. If you're ready to transform your life, visit them at luxneuro.com to schedule a consultation. The Sunny Choi, go look for her on a stage and building a school soon, all the things. And go lean into her social media, even if it's not your top priority or your top love space. I think it's a great view on not only the athlete you are, but the human you are. And if you're a parent out there and you got athletic kiddos, go check out what she's got going on. I think in the YouTube videos, it's really good stuff for our young people to see. So Sunny, keep doing good, big things. We're out here for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for joining Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Tune in next time, and don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.